Hi guys, Bannerman Road here. Since Doctor Who Series 10 is about to finish, I thought I'd try and review something else I enjoy watching. Actually, ever since I did my class reviews, there was only one spin-off series I really wanted to talk about. Okay, yeah, but I'll talk about it later. I'm talking about the Sarah Jane Adventures. But since there will be a Sarah Jane reunion coming on the 29th of July at Students' Union Cardiff, I thought I'd do my own countdown by reviewing every single Sarah Jane adventure, and that also includes the specials and the untold stories. I've been wanting to talk about the Sarah Jane adventures for years. Why? Because I love this show. Unlike Doctor Who, where it shows the wonders and new worlds and locations, this spin-off focuses on the adventures in your surroundings on Earth. At home, with your family, your friends, the people you work with, just anything you do in general. I drew some fan art of the show, I did an audio adventure of it whilst on a studio tour years ago, I've got a DVD collection including their novels, some action figures, and of course, a magazine which also includes the untold stories which may or may not evolve into future productions. I love this show and I want to talk about it. Now, unlike my other reviews, I'm going to have a video talking about each episode per day, with a few exceptions. Granted, there were at least 5 to 6 episodes per season. If I talk about all of them in one video, this would take forever. So instead, I'll maybe talk about one episode per video. I won't be giving a score since it wouldn't be fair since this is a show for kids. And I do recommend watching every single one of them, even the weaker ones. I'll talk about the plot, the characters, the monsters, and my overall opinions on each episode. I'll do my best to comment on as many as possible. And keep in mind, this is my own personal opinion. If you like or hate any of these episodes, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just pointing out what I think about one of the best spin-offs and possibly one of the best children's shows of all time. So without further ado, let's begin the Attic reviews. Let's start off with Invasion of the Bane, the pilot of the Sarah Jane Adventures. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I did not see this episode when it was originally broadcasted. The reason being was I was on holiday and by the time I got home I missed the episode and I couldn't find it on iPlayer. So as you can tell, I was gutted. But since I heard they would be releasing a brand new spin-off series of the Sarah Jane Adventures, I had a feeling they would be re-releasing the episode. So I luckily managed to find it, and it didn't disappoint. I think Epic Who said it best. This is a good start of introducing new viewers, not just to the characters of the Sarah Jane Adventures, but also to the Doctor Who universe. Unlike Doctor Who, which was a show that anyone could watch, but maybe with some concerns, Torchwood was a show which you would have to wait for unless you are the right age group. So it is fitting that the Sarah Jane Adventures would be more suitable for kids. And since I was a fan of Doctor Who and I was a kid, it would have been perfect for me to watch. And this episode does prove it. Anyway, back to the review. Maria Jackson has moved to Bannerman Road with her father, Alan. Much to her surprise, she is living opposite to Sarah Jane Smith, former companion of the Doctor. It's not long until Maria finds herself into an alien invasion and ends up working alongside Sarah Jane Smith to fight against the Bane, who control the human race with their drink, Bubble Shock. Let's start talking about the stars of the show, and to me, this episode has 2 stars. Let's start with Sarah Jane Smith, the main lead of the series. I actually like how Sarah Jane is somehow following the footsteps of the Doctor. She's sneaking around but doesn't get into conversations. When she gets into trouble, she acts all casual, and she only acts when it's necessary. The Attic, which is the setting of the episode, holds one of my favourite scenes where Sarah Jane talks about her life with the Doctor, which is good, but it is a shame where a much better talk scene about the Doctor in the next episode comes along. But what makes this speech stand out is all the details of what she's learned from her adventures with the Doctor and what she's been doing between Hand of Fear, School Reunion, and this episode. And for a start-off episode, she also doubts herself doing anything, as she mentions that while UNIT and the government have guns or weapons or all the stuff that they need, whilst all she can do is just sit around and do nothing. It's also nice to see how she starts to use the Doctor's methods and theories which do help save the day. Mrs. Wormwood is what I consider to be a good villain. I love how she's portrayed. Very calm, very polite, but like a snake, she can strike at any moment. her scenes with Sarah Jane really stand out. To me, she is Sarah Jane's opposite. It's like looking at a James Bond villain, very polite conversations, but at the same time trying to outmatch each other. The Bane become one of the more recognizable monsters of the Sarah Jane series. Very big, very squid-like with one eye. So yeah, pretty basic design. While I will admit the CGI is dated, and for what it was at the time, it's still impressive. Maria Jackson serves as the more typical Doctor Who companion, which is understandable. For a spin-off show for kids who watch Doctor Who, you have to have some similarities. In her case, however, because she is a child, I think it actually works. It's like watching a pilot episode for a new series of Doctor Who, and in some parts of the episode she plays the part of us, the audience. One of the iconic moments of this episode for me is the scene when Maria sneaks into Sarah Jane's garden to find her talking to the Star Poet. It is a gorgeous looking scene, and I can listen to that song for ages. Luke Smith, played by Tommy Knight, is a sort of child made by the Bane. Fans of the show know that he will grow to become a boy genius since he seems to have the minds of many children. In this episode, I actually like how he's introduced as a kind of newborn child, asking a lot of questions. Where does he come from? Who is he? Can I live with you? But soon to start learning things quickly by reading books or learning alien technology, remembering large numbers, and of course, Mr. Smith, the supercomputer voiced by Alexander Armstrong, which is a magnificent design, with the side panels, a console much like the TARDIS console, and of course the screensaver image, although I will admit his introduction in this episode isn't as grand as we remember it in future series, but I'm just being nitpicky. Let's talk about the attic. What a thing of beauty. Sure, it's big, it's cluttered, a bit too much, but it's still a thing of beauty. The attic also includes images and props from the classic series. For example, there's an image of a classic Dalek, the TARDIS, there's a photograph of Harry Sullivan, Unit, and of course, we've got K9 in a 1-minute cameo in a black hole. Maybe it's just me, but this is probably the only episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures in which it has a highly bright color gradient to it. I'm not kidding, when I first saw this episode after watching series 1, 2, 3 and all that, it felt like the brightest and most colorful episode of the series. So yeah, the episode is good. Does it have any problems? Well, like I said, the CGI on the monsters is pretty much dated at times. And yeah, if the Bane had this drink to take over the world, then why did Mrs. Wormwood create the perfect human being? I mean, yeah, I know they mentioned that they store all the 2% information in his head, but why couldn't they just extract the information so it won't get into any other hands? But the biggest problem with this episode can only be summed up with one character, Kelsey. Good God, there are no words to describe how awful this character is. Okay, actually there are. I had a look at her Wikipedia page and these are her hobbies. Flirting, watching TV, drinking bubble shock, and texting bully messages to younger children. What teenager does that? If someone were to send bullying messages to younger children, they would be arrested, and yet somehow, this one manages to go scot-free? If that doesn't creep you out, she spent most of the time flirting with so many people. She flirts with the tour guide host, who is obviously a couple of years older than her, which does seem kind of creepy. But then she immediately goes flirting with Luke and Maria's father! What the hell is wrong with this girl? Oh, and if that's not worse... Oh God, shut up! They could have just had this girl be eaten by the Bane mother and no one would even care. Although I will admit, her screaming does give one of the funniest lines in the show's history. And that was the start of the Sarah Jane Adventures. Does this episode still hold up? Well, surprisingly, yeah. For kids and maybe for some adults. Yeah, the episode does have its problems, but for a kids show, I think it works really well. Is it complex? No. Is it engaging? No. But its creativity, fun, and often comfortable moments does manage to tap into the audience. I highly recommend it to newcomers of the Sarah Jane Adventures or new Doctor Who fans. For a brand new children's television show, I'd say it kicked off stunningly well. Be sure to take a trip down Bannerman Road and see for yourself.